Welcome to the Planner Pals podcast, a podcast hosted by two true Planner Pals. I'm Jess or Jashi Corinne.
And my name is Mark, and I go by Marker Pages. And in today's episode, it's a sad topic to talk about, but we're going to help you out today. Today, we're going to be talking about, have you already quit your planner? And I mean, this new year has barely just begun, but we know that it happens. I know that it's very popular for us to make these New Year's resolutions, new year, new me, but perhaps that honeymoon period has already run off. We're only a month in this year, but we know that it happens. So we're going to be sharing some tips and some tricks and just some general advice that we can provide for you if you've fallen into that trap. But before we get started, Jess, we have to know this question. Have you ever given up or ditched one of your planners this early in the year?
Uh, Usually I get to this point and I'm still trying to struggle through it, but there have definitely been planners that I've started with the best of intentions, like, this is the one, it's going to change my life, it's going to solve this problem, I'm going to be so consistent. Crickets. Like, no, that's just not how it turns out. And I think oftentimes it's because, sure, intentions may be great, but if the reality of the situation doesn't align so that things can actually happen, they don't happen. One planner in particular that I can really think of with this would have been my kind of like social media content calendar kind of planner, which again, best intentions. It's not like I wasn't doing this stuff for social media. It's just that actually using the planner to help me, not so much. Have you had a similar situation happen?
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely gone in. Most of mine has been mostly due to quality versus like what's inside of it. I feel like a lot of my bullet journals and planners over, oh my gosh, it's almost been 10 years. I was just doing the math the other day, have been pretty much consistent how I set them up, but it has definitely come down to the paper or maybe like the way in which the planner has been organized. And this was before I even got into bullet journaling or DIY planning and started making it myself. But it's definitely one of those things where, especially now, I know pretty quickly whether or not something is going to work out for me or not. So I give it, the good old college try. And then I just sit down and kind of reflect and like, yeah, maybe not. But I usually have a backup plan. I've never ditched anything and like had nothing set up for myself. But I think all of us at some point have been there.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that, in terms of the number of reasons that there could be for not getting in and using your planner, it could be the actual planner itself. Maybe the quality of the materials isn't great. Maybe if it's a pre-printed one, the structure isn't actually gelling with how you want to do your planning. If we're thinking about a DIY system, maybe you just don't know what you need going into it. So you've set up a bunch of stuff that realistically in the day-to-day life actually isn't essential for you, so it's not getting touched. But I said we are going to be giving you some tips on how to get back in, actually get more consistent with your planners and journals so that you can have that kind of setup system that really works for you and hopefully holds you through the rest of the year. But Mark, what would be your first tip?
Yeah. So the first tip I've kind of themed this lower the bar to today. So one of the problems that a lot of people have with planners or systems, especially if you're new to it, is that it starts to feel like homework. And especially if you have never used a planner or a system before, you're kind of coming in fresh. So you haven't gone through the processes before to have to do this. So a really great tip and something that I've used many a times, especially when I've kind of been overwhelmed, is the idea of not dating. I don't think the right way to say this, but like date the page, not the planner. I know this gets hard because there's a lot of dated planners out there, but what's great about dating the page is that you can always turn the page and the notebook doesn't care if it's a week from now or 2 weeks or it's been a month since you've touched it. You can just write down the date on that page and just get going with it. And I think that's just a really great tip. I've done that before where I've foregone my planner for like a week or something wasn't quite working out, just wasn't it. You just feel it, but you're not sure of the answer. And that was probably one of the best advice pieces that I was ever given. It's like basically turn the page and write down and just kind of go from there. And then you kind of give yourself this really nice, fresh approach to it. I think it's something that I've always really appreciated. Maybe skip a few pages if you need to, whatever it takes just to get back in there and really approach it from a day-to-day standpoint too. I would also just say that if you are overwhelmed by a planner and thinking that you have to plan weeks and months in advance, you do not. Daily logging is a thing, whether you're using the bullet journal method or a different method, just focusing on what's happening that day. What do you have to get done? Writing down those notes. And then tomorrow you just do the same exact thing. And you'll find ways to kind of catch those bigger future planning things. But right now we're just focused on you getting back into your planner, back into your journal and onto the right path.
Yeah, and I think that for people who, in particular, I'm thinking pre printed planners here, where you look at the days, weeks, sometimes even months that you haven't filled in and feel like, oh, I have to get that stuff logged before I can focus on the now. Absolutely not. You do not have to do that. I mean, technically speaking, you don't have to do anything. But if the blank pages do bother you, if you feel like you can't just start from the here and now because there is that kind of backlog that you haven't filled in, and oftentimes that backlog makes, mountains out of molehills and such. Even if you were just planning for today, it would be quite easy. You just jot things down, what you need to do or whatnot. The idea of having to go back and catalog all of the stuff that has happened so that you have a complete planner just means that you kind of get into this paralysis zone of like, oh my gosh, I can't even possibly, because it's just too big of a task. Just rip the pages out. Like, you could just get rid of them. Okay, if you don't want to rip them out, I get it. But maybe it's just using one of those kind of elastic bands that you can have around a planner to kind of section off a piece, put it around that section that you haven't used, so that then you're not turning to those blank pages, you're just turning to today. So you can just focus on the here and now and get those plans in. Or if it's only been maybe a couple weeks or something, you could stick the pages together. You could put some washi tape along the edge to kind of seal that part shut. So you don't have to look at the blank spaces that make it feel like you're, quote, failing in your planner, because you're not. It's all good.
Yeah, one of the biggest places this has ever happened to me was inside of a Hobonichi 5-year planner. So it was gifted to me and I was so excited. I was like, absolutely, I'm going to write in this every day. And for the first few days I did, and then I didn't. And then I kind of forgot about it. And I was in the exact same mode that you just mentioned. And it also kind of relates to our last episode too, where we had talked about procrastination instead of planning. This whole idea of like, well, I have to fill in everything that happened on those days to get up to where I am. I'm not going to lie to you. I went through that about 3 times before I finally was just like, maybe a 5-year journal's not your thing, Mark. Like, clearly this isn't working out. You're doing all of this back work to try to fill it out. But for what? The whole purpose of a 5-year is that idea of like catching the day or the moment or those things. And we'll talk about this in this episode too, because I know this falls in here is like, but it doesn't have to be every day. You don't have to use your planner or a journal or whatever every single moment of every single day. And that's okay. And I think that's just for me. I just got to the point where I was like, this 5-year thing just ain't it. It's okay, Mark. Like, I know you like the idea of this, but maybe we'll find another way to do this. All right, Jess, how about yourself? What do you have a great tip or kind of advice for anyone who's maybe given up on their planner already this year?
So, this one, if you're part of my book club, then this is going to be familiar. But recently we read a book called Tiny Habits, which I definitely recommend. I did very much enjoy it. But one of the concepts that's introduced in that book is the idea that any behavior relies on three things: motivation, ugh, ability, and a prompt. Now, oftentimes, motivation is fickle, a fickle mistress, all right? It sticks around for a little bit at the start of the new year, new me energy, all of that kind of thing. Very quickly dwindles, wanes type of a deal. Ability, on the other hand, is really where we can start to pull some levers. So if we're thinking about motivation and ability as being kind of like inversely related to each other. So if you have a lot of motivation to do something but have low ability, you're still going to get the thing done. Whereas if you have super low motivation to do something, but you make it really easy, so your ability to do it is really high, it's more likely to happen. Okay. So if we're thinking about the kind of behavior of getting into your journal or into your planner and actually using it, the biggest lever that we can pull is that ability lever, making it so that it doesn't feel like a giant struggle to get in to do it, which means we don't need to have super high motivation to get the thing done. Now, when it comes to making the ability to do planning a little easier, this could be about the scale of it. It could be about the materials you're using. There are a bunch of different ways that you could make it easier. Some of my favorite ways are just kind of limiting the number of supplies I'm using. So in my day-to-day planning, realistically, I just need one pen. It's my everyday pen, so I've always got it available. It could be just limiting the number of things you're filling in. So rather than having a full fleet of different trackers and logs that you have to log information in every single day, make it something that you only need to fill in once a week. Or maybe it's something you have to fill in daily, but the actual way to fill it in is super easy. The other part of this, though, because remember there were three: motivation, ability, prompt. If you do not have something to prompt you to actually get in and use your planner, you're not going to do it. One of the prompts that we often rely on is like, I'll just remember it. The biggest lie ever told in all of humanity, I swear. Because if you're just relying on yourself to remind yourself to do a thing that you haven't already been doing, the likelihood of it happening is pretty much close to nil.
I think that's like one of my biggest things on why planning has worked so well for me over the years is that exact piece. When I tried to remember it on my own, never happened. You also realize over time that that memory piece is not there for me. It lacks. There's a big spaghetti hole, like or what? Not spaghetti hole. What's it
I
called?
love spaghetti hole.
Strainer.
Let's go.
Yeah, it's a big spaghetti strainer up there sometimes with things that I'm not interested in fully that don't stick. But I think that it's such great advice there and kind of really connecting it to certain things, places, or times. My next one, we'll talk about that a little bit too, but kind of to continue on like kind of where you were on that one, I think it's just really important to think about those kind of anchors is what I call them, but like these times, these places, these events, and really kind of just feeling really good about it. I think that also really comes down to a lot of what we're talking about today is, you got into this for a reason. You made this decision to start planning or using a journal or whatever it is for a reason. Just use it. Like, don't feel like you also have to completely like fit inside of someone else's box. One of my favorite things, and again, I don't know, I just say I said it. I don't know if anyone else has ever said it, but this idea that your planner needs to work for you. You don't need to work for your planner. This whole idea of trying to like fit yourself into the system. I will caveat that though, a little asterisk and say, but sometimes we need that. I'm the type of person that needs a system, a rule, or something like that to like teach me the right way to do it. Because in my life, I've been doing it wrong forever. So I needed to find something that was like, hey, Mark, here's a process, here's a system, here's a method on organizing those thoughts. And for me, bullet journaling was the thing that really grabbed me after trying a lot of different pieces. The methodology behind bullet journaling really grabbed me, and it works for me. And I think that's why I've been using it for almost 10 years now. And it's been so helpful in my life. But sometimes you do just have to kind of like find that thing and what kind of gets you excited. And sometimes it does mean you got to spend a little time with it. I mean, I researched it for probably over a year before I actually started doing it. I did a little trial bullet journal to kind of take myself through the paces to kind of see if it's there, and finding those points of the day or really kind of the times when I'm utilizing it has been key. And for me, that's been work. Other people, that's just their day to day, it's not work. So I think that's a really important point that you made there about kind of making it your own and enjoying it, but really anchoring it down to like what you need from it.
Yeah, and I think that if you're focusing mostly on the needs that you have for your system, then that can also just lower the bar, I guess, which you kind of touched on your first one. I like to think of like a high bar, low bar kind of strategy when it comes to building a new routine for yourself or whatnot. What is the low bar version of your planning? What does it look like to be consistent in the lowest kind of capacity? That can definitely make the behavior essentially stick. We're not going out here trying to reinvent the wheel and kind of overthrow our planning system within the space of a couple weeks and just expect it to work, because oftentimes it just doesn't do that. This is the thing that I have with intentions, and we're going to talk about this in a separate episode, I swear, but intentions for me are just people saying they want to do something without a plan. And I feel like when it comes to planning and planning systems, we get really excited at the start of the year of the possibility of being a certain type of planner without any kind of plan for the follow through of the planning. I'm saying plan too much now. It doesn't mean anything.
I will say that there are a lot of really great planners that help you break down those attentions. Finisher's Secret is one of those journals and planners that really kind of lines things up for you. If you're the type of person that like you don't know how to start or how to break it down, that is one notebook that I have always really appreciated and taken a lot from, because it helps you go through the process. It's kind of what I was saying before. We've adopted these methods, we've adopted these systems because we need help. And sometimes the bullet journal method, to your exact point of what you just said, that's kind of telling you what you can do. Yes, set intentions, yes, reflect, but it doesn't always help you break down those into actionable pieces. So if you are in a spot where you need any of those things, definitely do your research and see like what exists out there, to your exact point, that meets the goals of what you're trying to achieve within your planner. So I just wanted to add that in there because I thought that was a really valid thing that you just said there. Everything you say is valid. Let's not kid ourselves. But my next tip here has to do with using anchor points as ways to get back into your journal. So I think this falls a little bit more into those who, I'm going to say, have fallen out of planning, but maybe you are new to it. I like to think about my journal, especially by certain points of the day. So I just mentioned before that you don't have to use your journal every second of every day. right? You don't have to wake up with it, work through all the day, end your day with it as if nothing else exists. That's not realistic. So think about certain anchor points of the day to get yourself back into your journal. So a great example of this, I do this when everyone leaves the house and I drop the kids off at school and all of that. I grab my iced coffee or whatever's left with it, or maybe my second one in the morning. I come to my desk and I sit down with it. I don't turn on any screens, no email, no nothing. And I just go through my bullet journal from the previous day and I line myself up for the day. That's the first time usually that I'm touching my journal in the morning, right? Then I turn on my computer, I get into my emails, my chats, and then, I'm jotting down notes or tasks, whatever, throughout the day. That's how I use it. If you feel like you have to be in there all the time, maybe that first touch point is great. Second touch point could be at the end of the day, right? With kind of a brain dump. We've got a lot of stuff flying around in our brains after an entire day of work or whatever you may be taking on. Use that time as another touch point for your journal. Let's get it all out. Don't worry about the organization, the structure, what page it goes on, where it should be. Just create a brain dump part of your page or even a new page if you have to, and just get it all out of your head. That's a really fantastic way. Again, is this another touch point for that journal? Because again, if you're using another anchor, which is that morning coffee sitting down, you can go back to that and then move things around where you need to. Another spot that I really like to do is a Sunday evening sit down. And that's really just me taking a little bit of a look ahead of what's coming up for this week. Sunday nights are usually when I also am just kind of setting up my week, but it also just like puts me in a place. I know that I'm going to write this several times as I go throughout the week. I'm going to write down, appointment on Monday, meetings on Tuesday, whatever it is. And then when I set up my weekly, I'm writing them down again. I'm looking at my future log and other things like that. But if that feels like a whole lot, just if anything, again, just sitting down with it at another anchor point throughout the week to say, okay, just going to kind of look ahead real quick. And I think just having those points, and you pick whatever works for you, right? You have to use those examples exactly. I personally do love a morning and an afternoon check-in, but that'll help you also get back into it. Hopefully, like, really lower that bar. I love that when you said that before. Like, it's almost like leveling up in your journal. Like, you're starting off with your experience points on a, level one mage. And you're like, okay, I'm going to make some magic today just by writing down what's happening. And as you continue to build that habit and start using it more, level two, what does that look like? Level three, and building up from there.
Yeah, I think the nice part about having anchor points is that you can very much turn them into prompts for yourself with that idea of like, behaviors don't happen if you don't have a prompt. But if you turn it into such a thing of like, when I sit down at my desk, the first thing I do is open my planner. Or when I go and make my morning coffee, the first thing I do is have a look at my planner or write a checklist or something, which is kind of very much related to my second tip. Slightly different, but I do love the idea of having those kind of set check-in points for yourself, especially if you could make it a set check-in point that doesn't necessarily require a specific time to do something. Because if I make it for myself, be like, oh, yeah, at 9 a.m. every single day, I will check in with my planner. Cool. I already know that there are going to be 3 days of the week that does not work because one of them is live stream day, one of them is the Epic Goals work along, and another one is Saturday, and I'm probably still in bed, something like that. If you could make it kind of context based instead, then it's like anytime I'm put in that situation, I will check in with my planner. I find those to be more powerful, at least for me. Do you have a similar feeling with that, or?
I mean, like I said, like mine is like morning coffee, sit down. That doesn't, work starts usually for the rest, like the team itself at 9 o'clock. But by the time everyone's dropped off and whatever, I'm at my computer at like 8, a little after 8 o'clock. So I don't hold myself to a specific exact time of the day, but it's kind of like you said, like that moment of the day is kind of that habit that I'm building up. And again, I remove all distractions. So I really can't just focus on that one thing because that's an intentional thing that I'm trying to make happen. And I also know that'll give myself a really great start to the day. So yeah, I would say it's more of a moment, less of like a time of the day for your exact points. Because if I have a doctor's appointment in the morning and I come back to work at 10 o'clock, I'm like, well, missed my 9 a.m. coffee and computer. No, I could still do it at that same exact time. It doesn't matter when I'm doing it. What's most important, as we've been saying, is this that you do it.
Yeah, I think that that's also part of the consideration of finding a prompt for your planning system is if you've got a prompt and it's at an ineffective time, it's not going to happen. If it's an easily ignorable prompt, it's not going to happen. If it's prompting you to do something that you just genuinely don't want to do, it's not going to happen. So figuring out a prompt, that actually works can be a little bit tricky.
Yeah, that's like my not really New Year's resolution, but I really told myself that I was going to start like running on a treadmill. I like signed up for the, Fitness Plus plan on my treadmill. I can do all this crazy stuff. And I started to do the opposite of what I'm sharing about my bullet journal, realizing that I should use these tips at any time in my life because I was doing that. I was going, okay, Mark, at 8 o'clock, you're going to go downstairs and you're going to walk slash run on the treadmill for 30 minutes. And then something would happen that threw my morning off. And I was like, oh, well, I missed that time. So I'm going to do it at lunch. And then, of course, like a meeting runs over or I want to eat lunch or whatever else. And then suddenly I'm like, well, now I don't, well, now I just ate. Like, I don't want to go running after I just ate. I'll do it later on in the evening. And like evening time is pure chaos. You never know what's going to happen. And then it doesn't happen. So like I'm also realizing now I need to use these tips in my other parts of my life too, because it's really important to say less about the time and more about the moment, and kind of building it out from there.
Yeah, I'm currently in a 200 plus day exercise streak, which for somebody who went from exercising all of that like twice in 2023, that's not too bad. I think it was up to about 24 times in 2024, probably because I had a tracker for it. But yeah, on day 220 something or whatever, I don't even know what it actually is at this point. But the way that I very much tackled that was the high bar, low bar. So I never set myself a minimum requirement for the exercise. I just have to do exercise. And that means that most days, like 95% of days, it's at least 30 minutes or at least 25 minutes. But for the other 5% of days, it is just like I jumped on the walking pad for 2 minutes and called it a day because I'm just like in that kind of keep the streak alive mentality. And now, as I'm 200 something days in, I'm like, well, I don't want to break my streak because then I have to go back to zero and I don't want to do that.
That's how social media gets you. Like TikTok is doing that now. It's like, you sent this person a TikTok yesterday. I'm like, I sent them 30 TikToks yesterday. They're like, don't lose your streak. And I was like, does this really matter? Like, but I understand the psychology behind it though. Like my daughter is on Snapchat and sometimes we'll be driving in the car and she'll like take a random picture out of the window. I'm like, are you okay? Are you having like a moment? She's like, oh no, I'm just keeping my streak alive. And I was like, okay, but you're not putting, are you writing like a funny thing or a good morning? She's like, no, just taking a picture to send it. And I was like, so there's nothing meaningful in that. Like you're literally doing it just to keep a streak alive for no reason. But again, it's that psychology of it though, that like I get it. It's exciting to be able to say I've, worked out or been active for over 200 days. Like that's incredible. I'm like, can I get in 2 days this week? But again, that's like the low bar thing. Like that is a really good thing to say, like, yes, I could get in 2 days. I have 2 moments of time. I BS my way through parts of the day anyway, scrolling through my phone or, doing whatever else. Like I can make that time for myself.
Yeah, definitely. I think that the snap streak, gosh, that's such a throwback because I got to a point where I was like, my relationship with this streak is not one that's actually beneficial to me. So I just deleted Snapchat. I also recently deleted TikTok. I had to like, sit my friend down and be like, I know you're going to send me TikToks and I just want to let you know that I'm not going to see them because I no longer have the app. She's like, it's cool. I'll send them to you via Instagram. I'm like, God, foiled again.
All right, Jess. Well, let's go into your second point, advice slash tip on those who have given up on their planner so far this year, which is totally okay. I don't mean to say it in a negative way, but we've all been there.
Yeah, it's all good. Okay, if you want to come back to it though, one of the things you can use is somewhat related to these anchor points, in particular related to Mark's anchor point with the morning coffee, and that is temptation bundling, or essentially pairing your journal or planner use with something that is genuinely enjoyable, you get really excited to do. So even if you aren't, super excited to do your planning, or not as excited or motivated to get in and use your planner, what's something that you kind of without fail would just love to do? So it could be having your morning coffee, having a little indulgence like that. It could be listening to some fun music. It could be, I don't know, can you work out at the same time as doing your planner? Possibly. Working out isn't really a fun place for me, but for some people, runners high, endorphins, yada yada, something like that. But what is something that you genuinely enjoy, and how could you pair that with your journaling? It could be also the kind of thing that you use your planner or journal, set it up for the day or week or whatnot, and then immediately after that, do something you enjoy as kind of like a little reward to say, hey, you did the thing you have to do. Now you get to do the thing you want to do. For each person, it's going to be a little bit different as to what is going to really tempt them to use their planner in that way or what's going to make it more fun or exciting. But for some of us, it could just be using supplies you really genuinely love. Sometimes there is just a joy in being able to use those things, whether it be creatively or just like, very functionally, but you just love the feel of it. Like, I love the feeling of a good quality black pen on nice paper. Like, even if I'm not doing anything fancy with it, just that combination, oh, chef's kiss. So maybe in trying to get back into journaling, planning, or whatnot, using supplies that you really love that just feel good to use can be temptation enough. Yeah, otherwise, if you need something else, maybe it's a snack or some music or something else that just makes it a little bit more fun.
I love those. That's so on point. And we were just, I mean, it reminded me exactly what I was just saying, where I was like, I need to apply these to other parts of my life because I think that's what I fall into a lot. It's just like, oh, I'm not looking forward to that. But my brain loves a reward. I mean, my whole being loves a reward the same way everything else is gamified or the games that I'm playing, do X amount of things, get this piece. I like have to somehow attribute that to like, Mark, get on the treadmill, be healthier, like little things like that. Instead of getting like a digital badge for a game I'm playing, like give yourself something that you really are excited about. I just think that it really does come down to like pairing that. I love that. I think a lot of it is like a lot of that, like dopamine, the excitement. Everyone's there in the beginning of the year, making changes. I'm doing this more. I think a lot about like the summer for me. We spend a lot of the summers at the beach. And I'm always like, I'm going to work out and I'm going to be healthier because like I'm going to be out on the beach or I'm going to be in the water and I don't want to feel uncomfortable about like the way I look. And then I kind of get there and it's like a week before we're about to leave. And I was like, I got to work out now. I was on the treadmill for 30 minutes. Look at these abs, like ready to go. They're not there. But it's kind of that expectation of it. But just the idea of like, how can I work better about creating these habits and these plans and these things? And I love the idea, again, of connecting it to something that you really enjoy. Or I don't know, part of me though, and I'm just going to be honest here because that's how I like to live my life. The problem I have with it though sometimes is I'm like, but I can just do that now. Like, like I know some people who are like, oh, well, if you do this thing, you get a piece of chocolate. I'm like, I don't see a chocolate bar right now. I'm an adult. I'll do whatever the hell I want to do. So it does get a little difficult because my like reward system and the way that I think about life is like, I'm adult. I have adult money. Like I work hard for this. I'll just get what I want at this moment. I don't have to run on a treadmill for an hour to get there. I can run my ass downstairs right now and get that. But that's the hard part for me though sometimes with it, just being realistic, is that to find that way to like motivate yourself without jumping the gun or kind of taking the shortcut to get there in a way, I personally do struggle with. So I think it is something I just need to be more mindful of and like treat it like a fun thing versus knowing that I can just skip right to the end and get my reward.
Yeah, no, I am very much the same way. If we're playing with physical rewards or like tangible things that you can just like purchase or whatnot, I'm like, then I could just buy it. Like, that's the same issue with gift giving season. People are like, what do you want? I'm like, nothing, because I bought it myself. I got adult money. Thing. So I find that the types of rewards that usually work best for me are just like the satisfaction rewards, or being able to check a box on a tracker, being able to say that my streak is 200 something days long, being able to, it's like Fitbit, when they give you those little badges saying like, hey, you've walked the distance to India or something, or like things like that. Those are really fun for me because it's not necessarily something that I set up myself, because I find that the types of rewards that I set for myself are usually the kind of things that's like, yeah, I'll just go buy it anyways, whatever. But, because you're not expecting them and then they just kind of happen, you're like, ooh, when's the next one coming? So there's that kind of surprise element that comes with it, which how we actually plan surprises like that for ourselves, don't ask. Je ne sais pas. But I'm sure there's a way.
I'm sure it's like asking someone else to do that. That would be something where I'd be like, hey, Jess, I'm going to have you, randomly, I'm going to, number a piece of paper 1 to 10. And then I'm going to make a bingo card of 1 to 10. And when I achieve that thing, I'm going to tell you, and then you're going to tell me what I get from it. But like that then is hard, because I'm kind of like, part of me is like, well, do I give you a budget to like buy me fun things or, experiences? Like, yeah, exactly. How do you plan that out? I think the best way to do it though is to give it to like accountability partner or somebody that like, that can like reward you for those things without you knowing it, because otherwise I have zero idea like how you do that. I'm sure there's companies and apps that do that.
Oh, definitely. I think on your point of accountability partner, that's also like just an aside tip. It's not one that's in the lineup for today. But if you want to have an accountability buddy to do your planning with, having a little community, especially if you can find an in person one. So maybe it's like, I don't know, every Sunday you get on a Zoom call or a Discord chat or something with your friend and you do some planning together. Or even if you don't have a kind of accountability person in your immediate circle, joining a journaling or planning group online can also help add that kind of fun element, add the motivation, because then you can kind of, share how you're using your structures, see how other people are doing theirs. Obviously, there's a trap in this of like, just constantly collecting more information and tweaking and changing your system to the umpteenth levels because you're just constantly looking at other people's ideas. But there is something very motivating about joining a community where other people are already doing the thing that you want to be doing. So, hanging out with people who already actively use planners or want to use planners so you can commiserate together when you fall off on things. That can also be really helpful. But, Mark, what is your next tip for everyone?
Yeah, absolutely. So my next tip is about that blank page. We always had that blank page, and we feel like, oh no, like I didn't fill it out. I failed. There's this quote that I saw. I don't forget who it was by, but it says, "Blank pages aren't failures; they're permission slips." And I was like, "Oh, okay, I like that a lot." The idea here is instead of skipping ahead or completely abandoning your planner because you missed a page, is to label it something that kind of is that motivational thing. Label it reset currently, right now. Like this idea of just kind of almost like my first one, right? Like dating the page, not the planner. Is just sitting down and being like, okay, yeah, blank page, didn't fill it out, didn't use it. And just write down like what else you can use it for. I do this a lot in my journal, but it's mostly because if like a page has like a lot of bleed through or like something happened on it where it doesn't look great, I do skip it because I do love a nice fresh page, but I don't love skipping pages and like not using them. I actually have a sticky note in the back of my notebook where I write down those missed pages because I do come back to them if I need like to jot down notes or kind of do whatever on. So I would say this more has to do with the fact of like, I missed it, I'm unmotivated. So this just gets you back into it again in a really nice and low bar way right now and just start. And again, that's just another way to make sure you're touching that journal, you're touching that planner and getting into it. I will say that if you have a dated planner, and I feel like this is where it gets hard because I know the value of a dated planner, especially if you don't have to write the days and the weeks and all of that stuff. I get it. But I also feel like it's so hard to do that because if you missed a few weeks, like it's almost like the walk of shame. You have to turn those pages, age it everyone, and be like, not at use, didn't use, didn't use. I would say instead, I don't do this because I don't have a dated planner, but go online and look at what people do inside of their dated planners because I feel like there's a lot of people that like really customize those out the wazoo. There's so many, I don't even know they even look like a weekly anymore. They just look awesome. And find ways to use those pages again. Use it for memory keeping. One of the best things I've ever seen, because I have a bunch of the Hobonichis and like other stuff that I really thought were going to work for me. I just open up the weeks and I'll do like ink swatches inside of there. Or you could do, you got a new pen or new pen pack and just, fill that in there with like the colors or whatever, doodle on the page, whatever it might be. Like you can find other functional ways to use those when you haven't. So like have fun with it. Use it for whatever. I think the biggest thing is like most people don't have cameras watching them and live streaming their life unless you're on the Truman Show. No one's going to know, right? If you don't use that or you use it for something else. The only way they do is if you show somebody, right? Like the only way that anybody online would ever know that I missed pages or messed something up or abandoned my planner is if I told them that I did. Otherwise, everything looks great. It's awesome. Hunky dory, rainbows and sunshine. So just keep it to yourself if you feel like you're going to get any negative effect. But honestly, I don't know anybody personally in the planner space that would ever be like, oh, you missed a page, you're trash. Like I've never come across that. Have you ever just like any like people looking down on you for not doing something that they expected that you should be doing in your own planner?
Oh, I definitely have. But that's because people don't know when to keep their opinions to themselves. But it's okay because you won't have this problem, you planner pal. It's like, people saying, oh, well, you're obviously not a very good planner then because you missed all of these pages. I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry that you're so perfect. It must be really hard being you. But on the note of like having skipped pages, I love your point about the ink testing for sure, 100%. If you can think of like any kind of collection that you can split into 8 sections, that can be a really great way to use a general weekly log, either vertical or horizontal. You could set it up as like an ideal weekly schedule for yourself. So it's like, oh yeah, these are my days and how I want to theme them or something like that. You could make it in terms of lists of like different areas of self care. So like physical versus financial versus like personal environment versus work self care or like those kind of things. You could make it as like, lists of things that you love or reasons to smile or whatever. And again, split that out into different life categories so that you can use up the different structures of the page. If we're thinking about a monthly calendar, you could jot down like, little memories or moments or anything like that. Or what you could do is go onto, I don't know, Word or Canva or whatever, type up 404 error, month not found, print it off and stick it in your planner. Now you're just kind of making fun of it. I use that one a lot. If you miss something or if you make a mess up in your journal or whatever, just go haha lol JK whoops or something, put that in there and move on. Because at the end of the day, sure, we could beat ourselves up and, oh, I made this mistake or I haven't used this thing and oh, I'm a terrible planner and all of that. Making yourself feel shit is not going to make you do the thing, all right? You are not going to beat yourself up to consistency in your planner. And if you do, you're not going to enjoy the process. And I want you to enjoy this process, all right? When it comes to planning and journaling and all of that, I want it to be joyful. I want it to be journaling. I don't want it to feel like a chore or something I have to do or something that I'm going to beat myself up and rake myself over the coals over because I missed a day on my tracker. I have missed so many days on my trackers. My favorite way to tackle those things is just writing myself a little note that says, obviously I died, or maybe putting in a sticky note that explains why I didn't fill the thing in. Like, oftentimes, when it comes to month long trackers in particular that I haven't filled in, the thing that I will do for myself is just write a little explanatory note as to why the thing didn't happen. One of them in particular that I can think of was a time log where I was, going through in 15-minute increments or something and kind of mapping out what I was using my time on over the course of the month. And it had worked really well the month prior. So I set it up for the subsequent month, thinking like, oh yeah, I'm going to use this. And this was in the time of the Rona. This is when I got like, stuck in Melbourne because there was a snap lockdown and I couldn't get back to Wellington and all of this kind of thing. We were purchasing a house, like things were happening. So I just wrote myself some journaling being like, you intentionally didn't use this and these are the reasons why. So now it's essentially a memory keeping page rather than just a blank page that I can look back and go like, well, obviously that didn't work out.
Well, here I am saying go on the internet to find ideas. Just go to Jess's YouTube and she will give you all the ideas. Here's a list of 500 things to do in pages that you haven't used. Jess has got it all. Great ideas. I mean, those are amazing. Those are just really great. I love how you're just like off the cuff. Like I would have to do like hours of research to even think of one of those ideas. Jess is like, here's 35 ideas on how to use a blank page that you didn't use. I love it. I think those are really great ways to go about it. And again, just to kind of reinforce the fact too that it can be whatever you need to be. I love the idea of kind of razzing yourself about it too, because it's just fun. We know we mess up. I talk to myself all the time of like, Mark, you're an idiot. What did you just do that for? Especially after like awkward conversations, you're walking away and you're like, what did you even just say? Like, are you something wrong with you that you can't have an adult conversation? But it's also just funny though, because, well, I will think about it for weeks, but most of the time, like awkward conversations tend to last with you. But the idea that you can also kind of make fun of yourself a little bit in it and be like, yeah, well, next time we're going to try to do a little bit better and kind of see how it goes. All right, Jess, what do you have for your last tip / advice for those who have given up on their planner early in the year?
So when it comes to, starting a new year, new planners, new planning system or whatever, and having these very idealized versions of what we think success looks like, because they're idealized, because they rely on perfect us and the perfect situation and having the perfect amount of time to put in the perfect plans with the perfect decoration, and you get in the theme here. I find that one of the ways that helps me stay consistent or be consistent, given the fact that Mark and I have been doing this coming up on 10 years now, It's been a while. One of the things that has helped me in particular stay consistent and keep up with it was just redefining what success looks like. So for me, success does not necessarily mean having a fully filled out section for every single day of the week, for every single week of the month, for every single month of the year, for every notebook that I use. Because not every day is the same and not every week is the same. All right. There are going to be some periods where I either don't have a lot to write down, so it doesn't need to be fully filled in. There are going to be other periods where life just got way too hectic, and the idea of even touching my planner feels like time taken away from these other fires I need to put out. So stuff isn't going to happen with regards to that. And if I sit there and beat myself up about it, like we said before, beating yourself up is not a way to make yourself more consistent. It's just a way to make yourself feel crappy. We don't want to feel crappy. So instead, going with that idea of just lowering the bar, making it easier for ourselves or whatnot, I do not consider success in the consistency in my journals to be I used it every single day. That's not to say that I don't use it almost every single day. Like, there's a reason I call my everyday journal my everyday journal. It's the everyday touch. But in terms of the extent to which I use it or how much I fill it in or anything like that, that is going to vary day to day. And I know that that's just going to be part of my perfect system because it actually aligns with real life. Because as said, there's going to be some days where I do need to write a lot. There are going to be other days where I don't really need to write anything. There are going to be other days where I probably should have written something down, but I didn't because I got too busy. And the idea of using it was just like too much to handle.
You make such a good point. I was thinking about this. I was actually just going back and setting up my weekly for this upcoming week. And I was looking back on the previous two because I also have a bad habit sometimes of like migrating certain things, but not others. And then I get like 2 weeks down the road and I was like, I don't think I migrated. And I go back and I was moving it forward and I was like looking over my pages and I was just like, well, first of all, how did you miss this? There's not a whole lot on this page. And I was like, did I fail at using my journal this week? And I like really did think about it. And I was like, you used it. It did exactly what it needed to do for you. You wrote down notes, you wrote down tasks. There was a lot of stuff that happens. And I think that's also something else that I'm also coming to realize now. Again, 10 years in, I'm still learning about it. What my page looks like does not define how busy or productive I am by what's inside of there. I think I've also just really come to learn, there are certain things that just happen in the beat of that moment. Right. So, like, something that's like happening a lot to me right now at work, where I'm not using my journal for, I'm an admin for a tool. So, anytime someone needs access to this, I get an email that tells me to add this person or remove this person. And it used to be manual, but now it's automated from a standpoint of the messaging. So, I get 10 or more of these automated emails every day. And I started thinking, like, at first I was like, oh, I got to write this down. Like, I got to write down who it is. And I need to make a tracker to say, yes, I added them to this tool, or yes, I removed them. And yes, I closed the ticket. But I don't need to write that down because I'm doing it in that moment. It's easier for me to be like, oh, this person needs to be added to this tool, add them, click the link, close the ticket, versus me writing it down, creating a tracker, doing all of this when it's just all happening in the moment. And I think that was like a really big thing because I was like, I know I was busy last week. I know there was a lot going on, but like my journal page isn't reflecting it. Therefore, like, am I not doing things right? And it was just like this like aha moment that I just had for myself the other day when I was doing this. Or it was like I was saying where we started, like the plentifulness of that page has nothing to do with success of that week. You did write down the things that you needed, you took the notes that you needed, and the rest of your life is okay. Am I fired from my job? No. Did I accomplish what I was supposed to? Yes. It doesn't matter that it wasn't written down. So, like, that's been a really big thing for me recently. And that is, again, the idea of just like redefining what success looks like for you. It doesn't mean your page is filled every single crevice of it. Bottom line, did I do the things that I said I was going to do? Like, that's kind of where I've come to recently.
Yeah, I guess it's the idea that like you don't need a full planner to have a full life. Whether that be, getting your plan sorted, getting your stuff done, being productive, making memorable moments, and all of that kind of thing, just depending on what you're using your planner for. But if the thing that gets for me is like, if I am kind of like holding up doing stuff or like holding back on getting things done because I feel like, oh gosh, you just have to do this in your planner first. Otherwise, it's like doing the thing doesn't count. That's like a red flag for me. Whereas another red flag is like, oh, I'm not getting things done because I didn't put it in my planner. That's also like a problem. So it's finding that kind of happy balance between like letting your planner help you do the things you want to do and not letting it hold you back from doing the stuff that you need to or want to do. Yeah.
I like that a lot. I mean, I think it also kind of comes down to the fact of like just really examining whether or not the solution, the method, the notebook, the planner that you purchased or what you're using is actually fitting your life. I don't feel like enough of us really do this. And maybe you don't have the means to do it. That's also something I have to remind myself of often is not everyone has the ability to just buy a $25 planner to see if it works. Right. Because that's a commitment. Whether you think $25 is a lot of money or not, that's everyone's individual perspective, right? $25 is a lot. I remember spending $17 in my first Leuchtturm and being like, who the hell spends this much money on a notebook? This is ridiculous. But I think that it's just the reality of what it is if you've never used that system before, you've never really built it into your life. Something that I've been thinking about recently, I talk about like the Ugmonk cards all the time, like the next today, whatever. And someone had messaged me recently and they were like, Mark, I love the idea of the system, but like it's a lot of money for some index cards with some lines on it. I use faux monk is what she said, but I changed it into fuck monk. But anyway, she was like, the concept is exactly what I need, but I can't afford that. And she actually sent me a picture of like how she set up her index cards, and it looks very. She just did it by hand, and I was like, that's just a great idea. Like you're right, everyone can't. So this is kind of where I'm getting to with this is like, if you're not sure if something's going to work out for you, I talked about this with bullet journaling. This is what I did. I grabbed like 6 sheets of paper and stapled them down the edge and essentially set up a bullet journal before I ever started, bought that $17 notebook, right? Wasted my money if I was going to use it or not. And I used that. And that is how I realized that it was going to work for me. I think I used that, I think it lasted about a week or two, maybe with a handful of pages. But like that's a totally valid thing to do is to see if something's going to work for you by just making it yourself. It doesn't mean that you're not going to buy it or you have to like make every planner or whatever yourself, but like sometimes you just have to try it and just see and really kind of get into it if you're not sure, because I think it really does come down to like the value that you're getting from like the planner that you're using or the method or whatever it is. And I think also reflecting, if you did stop using your planner a few weeks in, like does that feel good to you? Like, are you as productive or are you getting things done? Are you, oh, I'm going to remember to do that. Are you actually remembering to do that? Or are you falling behind? And that could also be not to think about it negatively, but to say to yourself, that really did help me out. Let me redefine what success looks for me inside of that before I get back into it and kind of, again, turn that page, restart today, now, whatever that might be that we've talked about today, to start it up again in the way that makes sense for you to be successful. I think that's really kind of, from my opinion, really what it comes down to.
Yeah, and hopefully these tips have been helpful for you planner pals. But of course, we would love to hear from you. If you've fallen off with your planner or become a little less consistent than you would have liked, what kind of things, tools, strategies, techniques have you used to get yourself back into it, back into the routine of it, keeping a little bit more on top of using your planner? Let us know in the comments, or you can hit us up on Instagram at Planner Pals Podcast, or flick us an email, plannerpalspodcast@gmail.com. We'd also love to give a big shout out to people who have joined officially the Planner Pals community by signing up to our channel memberships. So if you would like to see these episodes ahead of time, as soon as they're ready, they're going to be released for our members to view. Make sure to hit the join button to check out the perks. You can find that beside the Planner Pals podcast username, just below the watch box here.
Well, hopefully everything helped you guys out today. I really do hope you get back into your planners and your journals. And again, just really remember that you started for a reason and you can get back into it in whichever way works for you. It was a fantastic episode today, Jess. I love talking to you. You have so many great ideas too. Like this is, again, I always say it, but that's why I really do love getting these different perspectives, because we both live different kind of lives. And I think while we have totally found out what we love about our planners, getting people equally excited about it is always a fantastic time.
No, I very much agree. Thank you so much for sharing your tips, and I'm really excited to read the ones from the Planner Pals. So, as always, thanks for watching.